lovely day!
Guys, Jim here. Welcome in once again. Today we're going to be taking a look at a brand new offering from another brand new brand and another brand new designer. This is the Caelum Blade Designs Ari prototype. Something entirely new, entirely fresh. And I'm not sure how the timing is going to align between the time I'm uploading and the time my buddy Kev at Lefty EDC is uploading, but he actually had this before I did. I just have a record for getting videos out more quickly than he does. I guess that's just the byproduct of somebody that does 1, 2, 3 uploads per day and somebody that has a life. What you're looking at here is a really interesting knife, and as soon as I saw the picture of it, I went, oh, hell yes, I need to get my hands on that. And I'll admit it's partially because of the materials. I really like these inlays that are being used on here. But the other thing was I really enjoyed the overall look of the design, the blade profile, the handle shape, the way everything comes together on this really looks good. And it was once I got it in hand that I went, holy shit, this thing is going to be an absolute winner. So yeah, spoiler alert, I like this knife a lot. This is really slick. Would I prefer that it were a flipper? Yes. I'm not a front flipper guy, but as you see, it front flips just fine, even for a novice in front flipping such as myself. But as far as reverse flicking goes, thumb flicking goes, and slow rolling goes, it does it all. So what are we looking at here? Let's get into the general specs, then we'll talk about the designer, and we'll talk about the pros and cons and all that kind of good stuff. We'll break all that shit down. How about that? So first off, this is called the Caelum Blade Designs Ari. The retail prices are going to be $269 to $279. $269 will have the micarta overlays. In the $279 price point, we'll have two choices of carbon fiber to begin with, one that is copper infused and one that is aluminum infused. And I really like the aluminum. I think it's a very sharp look. I love the contrast, that black and white, black and silver contrast. And hey, you know what? It goes well. Oh, usually I can reverse upside down flick them, but I couldn't do it that time. My little finger got stuck. I really like how the look flows with the coloring of titanium. So that was the one that I asked to play with out of the choices that were available. It is going to be manufactured by QSP, which we all know and love from the Incredible Penguin series. And I'm not a big Penguin fan on the regular Penguins, the $40 Penguins, but the titanium frame locks with the upgraded steel and the mokutai and all that stuff. Yeah, I really love this knife. I have a lot of fun with it, and it's a great little compact carry knife, and we'll use this for a size comparison in a few minutes. So the designer's name is Kevin Jong. He owns Caelum Blade Designs, and he is from California. Kind of a laid-back dude, it seems like, which I think that kind of fits in well with California. He's a family man. He's married. He's got 2 young children, and that's actually where the name Ari came from for this knife. So his firstborn son, who is only a couple of years old, his nickname that they use for him is Ari. So his firstborn knife is also called Ari. I love that connection. I did the same thing with actually my second born son, funny enough, because fuck the older kid, right? When I started my watch brand, I named it after him, after Strider. So I love that familial connection right there. It kind of shows that he's probably a good guy that you want to support. He's a family man, and that's a good thing. Let's talk about the specs. Overall length on this bad boy, I have not measured yet, so let's break out my tape measure and double check it real fast. Okay, my psychic tape measure says it is it is 8 3/4 inches. My apologies. I usually have that done right away before I start the video. So here are your specs. Overall length 8 3/4 inches. Your blade length is 3.65 inches. The steel is S90V. How refreshing is it to hear that? Not just M390 over and over. We like M390, nothing wrong with it, but that's kind of the go-to that everybody jumps on, and I like S90. It's a really, really hardcore steel. Good shit. As I mentioned before, the inlays are going to be offered in either a couple versions of micarta or the copper-infused or aluminum-infused carbon fiber. Your frame is titanium, your clip is titanium, also reversible. Your hardware is titanium. And by the way, the pre-orders on this are going to begin in September. Right now, today is August 1st. So in about a month, the pre-orders are going to begin on these bad boys, and you'll be able to get yours ordered up. When's the delivery, you might ask, because that is an important question to get answered. He is looking right around the beginning of February once all the orders are put together by the end of September. So where does the name come from for the brand? Caelum, he says, means sky in Latin. Now, I didn't double check that. I'm just going to take his word for it. And also, he feels that the brand image that he wants to portray is the sky is the limit. So he wants to push boundaries, which is great. And that whole sky's the limit design mentality, which he plans to continue flexing with each design, I think is a really cool thing. I like that idea. Something about that reminds me of me. And sometimes that works in your favor and sometimes it doesn't. You know, because sometimes you can really go too far and people go, man, that's really friggin' weird. But I don't think he went weird with this. I think he really did something fairly neutral. He's got a nice neutral frame design on here, so the ergonomics feel really nice. One thing that I really appreciate that he did on this is he went large. A lot of knives right now are between 3 and 3.5 inches. The really popular stuff, 3 inches, 3.25, maybe 3.5, and he went all the way up to 3.65, which, as I've said for years, is one of my absolute favorite sizes. It's just big enough to feel sizable, but it doesn't feel like you're carrying a folding pocket sword. You know, when you get up into about, 3.85 inches, 4 inches, 4.25, they start to feel a bit crazy, a little bit overdone. And that may be too much for a lot of people. Whereas this size, I think you've got an imposing look. It definitely feels sizable in the hand, yet it's going to be easy to carry. It's not overly heavy. I think it's a really good balance for somebody that wants a quote-unquote full-size knife to do actual functional work with, and then also have something that's compact enough to not feel like it's laborious to carry it around in your pocket. So I kind of dig this. Kevin's actually a knife collector going on nearly 9 years now, and he used to be a fabrication drafter. So his love of knives and his education in CAD design came together to create these really slick knife designs. So he's got that experience level doing design work. He knows his way around CAD, so it's easy for him to communicate with a factory like QSP and get his designs made fairly quickly. Whereas somebody like me, I struggle with folders and everything when I work with my production partners because I can only hand sketch. I don't know how to do CAD. I can even make a mess out of draft site. It's just, I'm not good at that computer designing. So I have to hand sketch everything, and then I have to make notes and explain this and this and this and that, because even my hand sketches aren't good. I draw like a 5-year-old on Ritalin. So I have to explain multiple times certain things to these factories. So then they have to take all those notes, give it to their design team, they have to draw something up, and then it's back and forth a few times with their renderings before I could say, yes, that's it, let's do it. So for me, it's a much, much, much longer process, whereas somebody like Kevin, he can work out all the mechanics of it. Okay, here's where the the blade stop is going to be. Here is where the detent ball is going to be. Here's this and here's that, and here's how we're going to do these inlays, and here's the spacing for shadow boxing the inlays away from the frame. All these little details. How large he wants the blade window to be, things like that, and he can relay those things in the very first conversation when he sends over that rendering. He goes, boom, here it is. And they can say, yes, we could do this. No, we can't. Here are our limitations. And as far as I could tell so far anyway, by the knives I've handled by QSP, they really don't seem to have very much in the way of production limitations. So I'm very certain that this process was pretty quick for him. And he just went, here you go. And they went, all right, let's do it. Here's your quote. And boom, there it is. So his idea here was to kind of hit the ground running with a sub $300 knife that has a high-end feel and will impress people as soon as they handle it. And it worked with me. I know when I saw it, I liked it. I thought, man, that's cool. It's a little bit different. I mean, it's a little reminiscent of a little knife here and a little knife there, but really all together as a whole, it's unique. And I saw that and went, man, that is really super cool. Let me check that out. He's like, oh, Kevin's got it. And as soon as Kev's done with it, I'm like, cool, Kev already has my address. And he shipped it on out. And as soon as I opened it and I put it in my hand, I felt something instantly that I couldn't see in pictures. It was how soft this feels in the hand. When you just look at the frame, everything looks kind of angular, like it has some corners to it. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to dig that. But, you know, there are certainly plenty of knives out there that have very sharp corners and stuff. And with certain makers and brands, we look past that. All of this is melted wonderfully. You know, it's like your difference going from a $400 1911 to a $3,000 1911. Visually, they might kind of look the same, but it's when you put them in your hand and you feel the slide and you feel that every corner has been melted. It's been dehorned. It's been rounded just a little bit. Not enough where it loses its shape and its definition, but just enough to the touch where what looks like a corner isn't a corner. It's nice and soft. Same thing with the edges on this, just like on the bottom edge of a slide on a high-end 1911. On a cheapie, it's gonna be almost razor sharp if you just ran your finger up it, and then you get something like a Wilson Combat, where that defined outer perimeter, that defined edge, looks defined, but it's nicely rounded, nicely curved off. Now, what they did here was a 45-degree chamfer that goes all the way around, and then the intersection between the flat and the bevel there for the chamfer it just feels like it's just nice and soft. So zero, and I mean zero hot spots anywhere. Even that clip, even though it's large, even though it sits up pretty proud, you know it's there, but it isn't cumbersome in any way. Not bothersome. It just feels great. The spine of the blade is the same way. Even though it's not a crowned spine, so it hasn't been rounded in this direction like that, it's soft. And it feels good. So if you're pushing down on it, you're doing any sort of, detail cutting and things like that, and you've got your finger resting up here, I'm pushing hard. And you can see a dent, but there's no harshness. You don't see like where it's digging in and creating like this sharp corner. I don't think I really have anything on the table that does. Well, maybe this. No, they did a good job on that one. Yeah, well, I tend to have nicer knives, so there's a crown spine right there, nice and rounded. So I don't think I really have anything in my collection that would cut in or dig in on the sides there, but it feels good. But the downside to that is the jimping isn't very grabby because everything has been softened so much that it's pretty smooth. I mean, if you really jam your thumb into it, it can be grabby, but you really got to be jamming into it. And if you're not into jamming, then it's going to be, not as effective as you'd like it to be. Everything about handling the knife feels good. And the action is fantastic. I'm going to guess ceramic bearings. Now, I didn't get that information from Kevin because honestly, I just simply forgot to ask. And as of right now, his website has zero information except for a couple of pictures of the knife. No sizing information, nothing like that. Let's get some weight on this. Now, again, this is a prototype. There may be a couple little defects here and there that may jump out at you. Don't use that to, base your opinion on it. And Kevin scratched the living hell out of the show side because he switched the clip because, well, he's lefty EDC. He carries his knife in his left pocket. So he kind of scratched up this side when he put the clip over there. I reversed it and put it back where a normal adult would actually have their clip. All right, so let's see what the weight is going to be like on this, because it feels, for such a large knife, pretty darn lightweight. 4.9 ounces. That ain't bad, man. That ain't bad at all. Let's get some comparable sizes out here. Oh, what did it go up to 5 ounces? Okay, it went up to 5 ounces as I was talking. 4.3 on the Nimble X, which is just a little bit smaller. 4 ounces on this Best Tech. Now, this is all carbon fiber, so that's going to be lighter. Oh, not by much. 4.5 versus 5. So there's not a huge difference there. These are almost identical in size. I'll show you in a second. And this is all carbon fiber, but it does have steel liners. So that's probably the big difference right there. So there's your weight out of the way. Let's give you some size comparisons here. Bring it out against the Nimble X. A lot of those are out there in people's hands, so if you own that, you'll see what the difference is in size. This is considerably larger. I would say that's a good, between 1/4 and a 1/2 inch longer, almost a 1/2 inch longer in the overall length, but the blade length isn't that big of a difference, quite obviously, because this is a 3.5 inch blade. So we'll get that out of there. We'll bring out the Red Horse Knife Works Hell Razor. And as you see, the size is virtually identical. And it's your perspective if you're looking at it going, what's he talking about virtually? It looks a hell of a lot different. It's just the perspective of the camera, the way that it's sitting. So very, very close in size. But, oh yeah, as I mentioned, this has steel liners in it. So that would account for why it's closer in weight than I thought it would be. All right, bring out the Best Tech. Another brand I really have been enjoying lately. And that is almost a 1-to-1 in length. This is obviously taller, and I do believe, we'll check in a second, but I do believe it's also going to be thicker. I believe both of these will sit up on their own. So actually pretty similar in their thickness and even in their blade stock thickness. So not a huge difference there. Another reason why this is a bit lighter than you'd expect is because it has just 2 standoffs instead of having a large backspacer. And then one last little comparison, just because it's QSP versus QSP. You could damn near almost fit the Penguin inside of it. Big bad boy. Big. Where'd that come from? The big bad boy right there. So I don't know what's going on. Talking is hard. So what do I think of it? I got to tell you, I love some of the key details. Let's take a look at this pivot here, because the pivot really did it for me. I love that pivot design. That is not, by the way, a big giant pivot island. This is all together. Notice how they did it on this side as well. I love the design work that's been put in there, the laser etching. I love I love the fact that it's almost flat or flush with the scale inlay. It's more like an overlay there. I don't really see a pocket where it's sunken down inside, so I don't really want to call it an inlay. It is sitting on top of the titanium, screwed in. Very, very nicely done. That's another reason that I liked the aluminum infused carbon fiber, because it hides that one piece of hardware. It kind of camouflages it at most angles and in most lights. Now on this side, it's going to act as an over travel for the titanium lock bar. I also dig that a lot as well. It's a nice integral way of doing that. There are your titanium standoffs. There's your titanium sculpted pocket clip. They did a great, or excuse me, milled pocket clip. They did a really good job on that. This does go in and out of the pocket wonderfully. It's a very, very effective clip. It's not overdone at all. There is your stonewashed S90V blade. How crazy is that we're seeing S90? I'm really, really a fan of that. Nice grinds. I would have preferred to see a little bit more prominence in the bevel lines. So if the flat had been gone over, let's say maybe hand rubbed satin, and it was gone over again a couple of times, just crisping up the lines between this bevel and the flat and this bevel and the flat, I would have been much, much more impressed. So right now it kind of has a soft look to it. I'm really, really big on the bevels being very pronounced up against the flat. It's also something that I strive for in the knives that I make. I really want that. Let me show you what I'm talking about, because I rarely do, but I actually have a couple of my knives here. So this is what I'm talking about here, is having this very pronounced, these crisp lines between the flat and the bevels. I'll show you here on this little finger that I just got finished making a few days ago. So I really like that crispness, that very sharp definition between the bevels and the flats. So when you look at this, you go, okay, I see what you're talking about now. It's a little bit softer, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a personal preference. You may or may not have that preference yourself. I love the sweeping radius plunge. It's very, very attractive. Not really necessary on this knife, because they could have very easily just done a straight plunge that matches the angle of the end of the titanium frame. But I love it. It's a flex. It's something that you don't see a lot of makers or production companies do, because, well, it's not very easy to do. And I keep smudging up this finish summit. There's something about QSP's finishing that makes it very fingerprint prone. I still haven't figured out what it is, whether it's satin or stonewash or whatever the finish is. They seem to be very prone to fingerprinting. But man, I love how it looks. I love how it feels, especially. And I really like the action. What I'm trying to do is not just hold the lock bar the whole time, because then obviously you have no friction. But what I want to do is just kind of release it till it gets past the detent, and one little shake, okay, two little shakes, will drop that blade right into place. So it's very, very smooth, very fast. It's got a nice balance to it. When you're holding it in the hand, it feels really, really good. It feels like you could pretty much do anything with it. And yeah, wow, it's attractive. It feels good. It's got a utilitarian sized and profile blade. What am I doing? Why can't I can usually just, oh, you know, it's the size of this is what it is. Because I know I can usually reverse it. You know what? I know I can do it on my EMPs. I can usually reverse finger flick it upside down like that, and it works out well. But this is just a little bit bigger. Oh, one thing I did want to mention. So if you're used to doing a lot of the finger flicks with knives like your EMP, EDC, Nimbles, you're going to notice that your finger fits into it a certain way. And you have your own comfort, where you just want the meat of your finger doing the flick, or you want your nail doing the flick, which puts more of your finger into it. This is a larger opening, and you're going to get, I mean, look at that. You're going to get quite a bit of your finger in there. So keep that in mind too, especially if you got really big old fat fingers. You're probably going to appreciate this more than many of the other knives that are out there, because there are some that they have such a small opening. I just reviewed one a couple weeks ago that had such a small little window that it was really a challenge for me to get my finger in there. But this one, as you could see, I mean, you could damn near, if you had small fingers, you're going to put your whole damn finger in there. It's also going to be really good for your thumb as well. So you've got a nice big wide opening there that allows you to just pop in there and flick it however your little heart desires. So that's it from me. I just wanted to make sure I got this video out fairly quickly right after I got it. I've only had it for a couple of days. I carried it for one and a half days actually. And like I said, the fairly lightweight nature of it allowed it to kind of disappear in my pocket. Didn't really feel it. For such a large knife that feels like it's capable of pretty much anything, I think it's very well balanced between the weight and the size ratio. I love the blade steel. I love the overall feel in the hand, the way that they just kind of melted this titanium frame. Because, yeah, I mean, you got a slab-sided titanium frame with very defined edges. You would think that it would have some degree of sharpness to it or some hot spots. And man, oh man, it just doesn't. It just feels really, really nice in the hand. So I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this. Do what you got to do to get in on this. I think that for the price, it is an absolute no-brainer. I could tell you right now that if, let's say Kevin was a really, really big designer name in this industry, this would be, in its current form, probably right around $400 from anybody else as a full production knife. You know, mid-tech and custom obviously would be significantly higher. But this would be about a $400 knife from pretty much anybody. To do this at $269 to $279, I feel like it's a great value. So that's why I say, do what you got to do. Jump on it. Go follow him on Instagram. I will put his Instagram moniker down in the description, you know, because I think it has underscores and shit like that. So it's just easier if you just read it off of there or copy and paste, and you'll have it made. But definitely go give him a follow when that pre-order opens up. If what you see, what you like, if what you see here is what you like, I can assure you that it will be much more impressive in your hand in person. So you're going to want to get your order in, and good luck to you. And I'll catch you guys on the next video.